Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 8th November 2024. Today again, we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we'll look into various aspects of Indus Water Treaty. Is there any need to modify the treaty or not? Then in our second topic, we'll look into various dimensions of gender equality at workplace. Why is it important? And what government is doing to promote gender equality at workplace. Then in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very important for your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So please have a look on them also and stay tuned. So, our first topic is modifying Indus Water Treaty. The context of this topic is that a lead editorial has appeared in today's The Hindu newspaper highlighting various aspects of Indus Water Treaty. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, India and its neighborhood, and grouping and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interest. So if you will recall the relation that India have with its lovely neighbor Pakistan since independence, there are very few sweet memories that we share with the Pakistan. Also, there are very few areas where both the countries have cooperated with each other. However, Indus Water Treaty is one such exception where both the countries are trying to cooperate with each other. And this is one such treaty, one such area which has been less affected by various issues that has arisen between both the countries time and again, whether it was 1971 war, whether it was the Kargil war, or whether the terrorist activities which are originating from the Pakistan soil. So this Indus Water Treaty, which was signed between India and Pakistan, and the objective of this treaty is mainly to regulate use and distribution of Indus River system, means the Indus River and the tributaries of the Indus. This particular treaty was signed between the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and then President of the Pakistan Ayub Khan in year 1960, and this particular treaty was brokered by World Bank, and notably World Bank was also a signatory to this particular treaty. If you talk about the role of World Bank, it is mainly to appoint a neutral expert in case of technical differences, failing which the differences are escalated to a dispute for international arbitration. What is mean by this technical differences? Let's suppose India is allowed to construct a dam on any one particular river. So what should be the parameter that should be followed while building that dam? What should be the height and how much amount of water it should restrict so that the natural flow is maintained? So all these technical details that should be followed. If there is a difference of opinion between India and Pakistan, World Bank can appoint a neutral expert to look after that technical differences between both the countries. Now, what happened on August 30, 2024, India served a formal notice under Article 12, Subclause 3 of Indus Water Treaty, and mainly it underlines the concerns about India's ever increasing water demands, whether it is due to the increasing population or whether it is due to the climate change related issue which is leading to increased water demand in the agriculture. Also, India have highlighted through this notice the impact of persistent cross-border terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, which is impeding the smooth operations of the treaty and which is also undermining the full utilization of rights in the Indus. So if you look into the provisions of the Indus Water Treaty, it has been divided into western rivers and the eastern rivers. The eastern rivers, that is Ravi, Byas and Satluj, here the annual flow before entering Pakistan is almost 11 cubic kilometer. And India has full rights on all water. Pakistan can use whatever flows into their territory. Whereas if you talk about the western rivers, that is Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, that is annual flow is almost 232.5 cubic kilometer, and India can use only about 62.2 cubic kilometer, and 170.3 cubic kilometer is reserved for the Pakistan. So if you want to know a trick that how you can remember that what are the rivers or tributaries on which India have full control, that is batsman Rohit Sharma, or BRS. B stand for Byas, R for Ravi and S for Satluj. So here India have full control over consumption, irrigation and hydroelectric projects without any restriction. Whereas if you talk about the western rivers, here the Pakistan have full control, and and the primary use rights of these rivers are allocated full-fledgedly with the Pakistan. However, India have limited rights on the western rivers for non-consumptive purposes such as hydroelectric project, storage and limited irrigation purposes can be also used. There has been also establishment of Permanent Indus Commission, which mainly comprises representatives from both India and Pakistan, and they meets regularly to exchange data information between both the countries and also try to address the disputes and ensures the compliance with the treaty obligations, whatever that has been earlier agreed. If you talk about the tributaries, various tributaries of the Indus, that is Satluj, which origins from Mansarovar, Rakas Lake near Tibet, and it meets Indus a few kilometers above Mithankot, Pakistan. If you talk about Jhelum, it origins near Verinag in the Kashmir Valley, and it meets Chenab at Tirimu, Pakistan. The Chenab, which originates from the Chandra and the Bhaga streams near Baralacha Pass, and Ravi near Rangpur, Pakistan. The Ravi origins from Kullu Hills near Rohtang Pass, and it meets the Chenab near Rangpur in Pakistan. The Bias River, it originates from Rohtang Pass and it meets Satluj at Harike Barrage, India. If you talk about the significance of this treaty, why this treaty is so significant for both the countries is because it is addressing the water security in the arid region. That is, whether if you look into these areas, that is northern belt of India, or whether it is the areas where the agricultural is so predominant in the Pakistan, that irrigation needs are being fulfilled by the tributaries of the Indus itself. So to fulfill the demands of the needs of the population, or whether to meet the demand of the agriculture, these water that is flowing from tributaries of the Indus is very prominent for both the countries. Also, this particular treaty is one such model of successful water diplomacy in world which hasn't been much affected by other issues that are there between both the countries. Also, the treaty is very significant for agricultural and economic impact. Both the countries have a significant population which is mainly relying on the agriculture itself. For example, almost 50% of workforce is dependent on the agriculture itself in India. And if you look into this area, like areas of the Punjab, where there is very good canal irrigation system, where there is good canal networks. So to feed that canals, these rivers play a very prominent role. And why this irrigation is very important? Because of the production that we do of the wheat and rice and some other crops. For them, these rivers are feeding the water. And even in these areas of the Pakistan, where the agriculture is very prominent and some good canal irrigation is there, these rivers and their tributaries play a very huge role. Also, the protection against the climate-induced variability. Since we know that in 21st century, the climate change is very real. If you will recall this thing, that this is the month of November. Are you facing that kind of winter or that kind of cold which you were earlier facing? Answer is no. The temperature is still very warmer what it used to be few years earlier. So due to the impact of this climate change, agriculture is also getting impacted. There are more cases of drought related years that is happening. Monsoon is getting impacted. So due to all this climate change related issues, where also the groundwater table is depleting, lack of potable water is there. If you will just Google that, lot of areas under the Pakistan have deficiency of the potable water. They do not have proper water to drink. So in that regard, these rivers play a very huge role, because we have to understand this thing, that let's suppose tomorrow there is food insecurity in the Pakistan. Tomorrow, if there is lack of proper water or agriculture is heavily impacted in the Pakistan, that will create law and order situation, that will have far-reaching security implications for the bordering states in India, because people would be migrating to these states which are bordering the Pakistan, because in the Pakistan the conditions would not be very good. So it is also very important for us that at least the food security and the agriculture is at decent level in the Pakistan. Also, this particular treaty encourages regional stability, where there is some areas where both the countries are cooperating with each other, where both the countries are trying to curtail their differences. And if there would not be this treaty, there might be some other issues that may be arising due for the sharing of these waters. So in this regard, this treaty is very significant. But if you talk about the challenges and the criticism of the treaty, there are disputes over hydroelectric projects. For example, Bagliha Dam, which is built on the Chenab River, Kishan Ganga Hydroelectric Plant, which is being built on the Jhelum River. Pakistan have several apprehensions that these dams have potential to alter water flow and they can impact the downstream regions. The availability of the water with the Pakistan might be impacted. Also, the climate change and the changing hydrology, that is with the receding glaciers and less rainfalls, the natural flow in these rivers is getting impacted, and that is leading to less availability of the water in the downstream regions. Then the population growth and the rising water demand is further impacting the pressure on the water resources, and where that is the reason why there has been more and more issues that is being arising between both the countries with regard to the protection of this treaty, with regard to the fulfillment and proper following of this particular treaty. Also, the limited scope of modification, that there are limited flexibility that has been provided in the initial stage of the treaty itself, and there has been less areas where the accommodation is being provided that can actually help in fulfilling the emerging water demands and the climate realities. What does it mean? That treaty is somewhat very rigid. It doesn't provide proper framework that can actually help in accommodating the changing needs. That, for example, the population is increasing, the agricultural demand is increasing, the water use is increasing, climate change related issues are increasing. So there should be some provisions that can actually help in accommodating these emerging needs. Also, the ecological issues, that whatever the dam that we are building, that can actually impact the marine life, that can actually impact the ecology in those areas. So that is also one of the issue or criticism of this particular treaty. So what should be the future course of action? The first, there is need for revisiting this treaty, and there should be some framework that should be incorporated that can actually help in addressing that emerging needs that are arising, whether due to climate change or changing dynamics related to population and agriculture. Also, there is need for climate resilient water management. For example, practices like water harvesting, practices like drip irrigation in case of agriculture rather than going for full-fledged flood irrigation. When our water use efficiency will increase, it will actually help in reducing the demand that agriculture at this point of time demands. Also, there is need for joint monitoring and data sharing between both the countries, because there is lot of mistrust that has grown between both the countries. When there will be a proper data sharing and joint monitoring between both the countries, that will actually help in creating that trust between both the countries, and that can actually also help in normalizing the relation between both the countries. Also, the technical dispute resolution. At this point of time, World Bank hasn't been very effective in addressing this technical dispute between both the countries, and there has been times when the international arbitration has been involved. At this point of time, there can be a mechanism that can be provided under the treaty itself that can actually help in addressing this technical disputes that is being arising between both the countries, whether it is with regard to the natural flow of water, whether it is with regard to the dam construction, whether it is with regard to various other parameters that needs to be followed for the treaty. Also, there is need for promoting bilateral and regional water diplomacy, that we need to involve various other countries which have Indus river system areas in them, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc. And that can actually help in properly following the proper water management practices and properly ensuring that Indus river system is being used efficiently. Also, there is need for dialogue and cooperation over confrontation between both the countries, because actually it is not the confrontation, but it is the cooperation and collaboration between both the countries. It is the data sharing, it is the information sharing, it is the diplomacy that can actually help in yielding the proper results. Also, some suggestions that had been given in the editorial itself, that the editor says that it would be very difficult for both the parties to renegotiate the treaty with the current dynamics that both the countries are having. So better would be that there can be IWT's formal negotiation procedures, and that can help in arriving at memorandum of understanding and other cooperative avenues that can actually help in addressing the issues as they arise while using the treaty as a structure to organize the development of the basin. So there can be some MOUs that can be signed between both the countries, there can be some mechanism that can be provided in the treaty itself through these MOUs. Because what is happening when there are lot of issues that are time and again arising, and there is no mechanism to solve or those apprehensions or those issues or those concerns between both the countries, that is leading to growing mistrust between both the countries and also non-following of the proper treaty. In this regard only, there was a prelims PYQ 2021 that was asked. Please comment the answer of this particular question in the comment box. Also, there has been a mains practice question that is discuss the significance of the Indus Water Treaty in the India-Pakistan relation. Examine the key challenges faced by treaty in context of climate change and rising water demands, and suggest ways to enhance the bilateral cooperation on water management. Before moving to our next topic, as said by Honorable Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, is that we can change our friends, but we cannot change our neighbors. And in this regard only, it is very important that a peaceful Pakistan is there, which have a proper food security. Because if there will be issues in our neighborhood Pakistan, that will have far-reaching security implications for us. That is clearly visible in the what is happening in the Myanmar, what is happening in the Bangladesh. That is leading to lot of influx of migrants, that is creating lot of other issues. So that is why it is very important for both the countries to renegotiate various the treaty, and also to address the various concerns and the apprehensions that we have with regard to this Indus Water Treaty, and also with regard to various other issues that are underlying between both the countries. Our next topic is gender equality at workplace. The context of this topic is that Kerala government said that preliminary probe into HEMA panel cases to be over by December, and this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, issues related to women and gender equality. So what has happened, there was a platform named Women in Cinema Collective, whose petition led to setting up of HEMA committee by the Kerala government. And what has this report highlighted is the horrid tales of sexual exploitation, illegal bans, discrimination, drug and alcohol abuse, and wage disparity in the Malayalam film industry. So what has happened, there has been widespread issues relating to gender discrimination, women exploitation, etc. that were underlying, and in this regard this platform Women in Cinema Collective was formed. And due to these petitions that were filed by this particular Women in Cinema Collective, Kerala government have set up this HEMA committee report, and this HEMA committee submitted its report. However, the full report couldn't come in the public domain. There were some parts and that were came, and that led to various issues, that highlighted various issues. And if you look into various issues, overall issues with regard to the sexual harassment, there has been a persistent increase in past few years. Also, that till 2023 we have this data, July 2023, and this is data from National Commission of Women. You can see that there has been more and more increase number of the cases with regard to the sexual harassment. Also, the state Uttar Pradesh is the highest with the highest number of sexual exploitation cases. Also, if you look into this crime against women under the IPC 2022, this cruelty by husband and his relatives constitute almost 31.4%, and kidnapping and abduction 19.2%, assault to outrage modesty, that is 18.7%. Then others is 23.6%. Apart from this husband and relatives, that is 31.4%, that is 670%. A major chunk of this exploitation is happening at the workplace itself, and that have far-reaching implications on the participation and the overall efficiency of the women in the economic structure. So what are the reasons for this discrimination and the sexual exploitation? The first important reason is the patriarchal norms, that is the inherent patriarchy in the society which calls for the male dominance, that male are superior to the females, and the female participation should not be there in all the domains. And also there should not be an equal parity between male and female, the gender inequality and the power imbalance, that men do not want to see women in the powerful positions. So this inherent patriarchy is one of the main cause of this sexual harassment as well as discrimination between the men and women. Also this cultural stereotypes which tries to conform women to the traditional roles, and this stereotyping that women are only suitable for the expressive roles like roles of the nurses, air hostess, receptionist, whereas men only are capable of instrumental roles like the serving in the police, serving in the army, or some leading positions. And this hinders the opportunities that are available to the women. And there are various other issues like objectification of the woman that further aggravates the situation and creates a situation where more and more discrimination, exploitation of women are happening. The lack of awareness, that is the women are unfamiliar with their rights and they are not very sound with the reporting procedures, that how they can report any incident with the police officers and what are the various procedures that they need to follow for reporting a particular procedure, and what are the various legal options that are available, what are the various laws of the parliament that are available with the women that can actually help in them in getting the justice properly. So this awareness is also one of the important issue. Also the power dynamics, that is the hierarchical structure that is there. Also women have this fear of retaliation, that if they will report any issue of exploitation or harassment, they might feel a retaliation from their male counterparts which can be detrimental for them, that can lead to job loss or that can be a threat to their life. So this fear of retaliation is also one of the important issue which lead to the discrimination and sexual exploitation. Also the vulnerability of the woman because of the lack of resources, lack of proper infrastructure. For example, there are very less availability of the public infrastructure, there are very less availability of proper roads, there are very less availability of proper lightening roads, where there are proper availability of light in the night time. So that makes women vulnerable for the exploitation or discrimination also. Then the economic dependence, that is the financial insecurity that women have, the job insecurity and the limited choices they have, because they feel that if they will report any exploitation at the workplace, they might lose their job, and that's why they keep on going with that particular exploitation or discriminated at the workplace. The workplace culture, that is hostile environment that is there, the harassment tolerance culture and the impunity that is there. Also, there are various other phenomena that is related with the this workplace culture, and that we have inherited from the patriarchal norm and the cultural stereotypes, like the glass ceiling, that is this invisible barrier that is preventing women from reaching to higher echelons, like they cannot reach to the position of chief executive officers, they cannot be the president. There is an invisible barrier, there is an unsaid rule that women will only be limited to this particular middle positions and they will not be reaching to the higher positions. Or the cases of glass cliff, where women are only promoted to higher positions when there is high risk of failures, so that the burden of that failure can be shifted to these women. Also there are legal loopholes, there is no proper oversight mechanism to look for the proper following of the laws or proper enforcement of the laws that are made by the parliament. There is lack of accountability by the police officers or the officers on the ground. Also the delayed justice, even for heinous crimes like rape, it takes a lot of time to get proper justice, and that further demotivates women for reporting these cases. Also the ground level bureaucracy or the police officers are not properly trained, they are not very compassionate with the women, and that is also one of the area that women feel the retaliation, fear of retaliation, or they may further feel vulnerable and they have this feeling that they might not be getting justice. So there is no point at all for going for reporting of that particular cases. Also, the social stigma, that is the shame, fear, isolation and the victim blaming that is related with this particular sexual exploitation and the discrimination, that this society feels, or there is an inherent notion in the society that it would be the mistake of this particular woman only, or this particular female only. They are blamed for their clothing, they are blamed for at what time they are outside their houses. It is not blamed on the male counterpart. So the shame, fear and the isolation that they feel when they report these cases, that further demotivates them for reporting of these cases, and that leads to further rise of these cases. So why it is important to have a gender balanced workplace? First, the moral imperative, that it will help in equality and the fairness of all, as it is also guaranteed by the Constitution under Article 14, that there should not be any discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex. So it is very important to for ensuring that equality and the fairness. Also, the economic growth, when 50% of population is not properly contributing to the economy, how we can ensure that there is a proper, productive, efficient economy. So when women would be incorporated in the public domain, in the private sphere, in the work culture, they will bring some diverse perspective, and that will help in driving the innovation and the productivity. Also, the social progress, that they will be challenging some gender stereotypes and promotes equality, and they will also bring some role models who can be followed by some other people, some other women, and that will also help in bringing or creating a network between the women, and that can actually help in motivating some other women to come in the public domain, to come in the workforce. Also, it will help in talent utilization, that it will be helping in maximizing the potential of all the employees. Also, there will be a positive workplace culture where there will be respect, inclusivity and collaboration between men and women, irrespective of what they are doing. Also, the legal compliance, that it adheres to the anti-discrimination laws and regulation that are made by the parliament. In this regard, only various government initiatives that has been taken, that is the POSH Act, that is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act 2013, which calls for establishing internal committees to investigate and address harassment complaints. Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme, which aims to prevent the gender biased sex selection and ensures the survival, protection and education of the girl child. Nirbhaya Fund, which support initiatives for the safety and security of women, setting up of emergency response system and improving the public infrastructure. The Ujjwala scheme, which calls for prevention of trafficking and rescue, rehabilitation and reintegration of victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Then there is Swadhar Grey, which provides for short stay homes for women in difficult circumstances like trafficking, exploitation, prostitution, etc. The Nari Shakti Puraskar, which recognizes and honors the individual and institutions for their outstanding contribution to women's empowerment. The Mahila Shakti Kendras, which are the community centers that provide various services to women, including vocational training, counseling and legal aid. The One Stop Centers scheme, which provides for a comprehensive services to women who have been affected by violence, including medical aid, legal assistance, counseling and shelter. Also, there has been one scheme named She Box, that is Sexual Harassment Electronic Box, which is helping in registering complaints related to sexual harassment at workplace through this particular website and portal. And this is also calling for providing speedier remedy to women facing sexual harassment at workplace. And the complainant can monitor the progress of inquiry conducted by the internal committee. And this is fulfilling this philosophy of safe workplace is every woman's right. So what should be the way forward? First, we need to strengthen the legal framework. There is no need for new laws, but whatever the laws that are already made, that are already present, we need to ensure that they are properly enforced. Also, there is need to raise awareness among women that what are the various rights that are available to the women that they can take. Also, there is need for promoting the workplace equality, and for this regard again there is need for awareness generation between the men and women both. Also, we need to dismantle various gender stereotypes and patriarchal norms. Also, there is need to challenge these harmful stereotypes, and in this regard only this primary socialization is going to be very important, because the children's what they are learning from their mother, from their father, and the secondary socialization, that is what they are learning at their schools, that plays a huge role that what is their mentality would be in the future So it is very important to challenge these stereotypes in the initial stage itself. We need to ingrain this feeling in the children itself that men and women are equal. There is no difference between both men and women. Also, we need to invest in the training and the education. We need to provide proper skill to the women. We need to provide them proper facilities so that they can learn the skills, they can learn the things that can make them employable. Then there is also need to improve the enforcement of the laws, and for this again the oversight mechanism is going to be very important. There is need to create a safe and inclusive work environment, and for this it is very important that there is proper infrastructure, whether the proper restroom facilities, proper creche facilities are available or not. Also, it is very important to ensure that whatever the acts, that is posh etc., are there, they are implemented properly. Also, there is need for fostering a culture of respect between the men and the women. When at the workplace this culture of respect would be there, that will also help in preventing, that will also help in diminishing various cases of exploitation and the discrimination. And one mains practice question from this topic is that discuss the reasons for sexual exploitation and discrimination at workplace of women in India. What measures can be taken by the government, employers and society to address these issues and create a safe and inclusive work environment for women. In our simplified section, first topic is this: Supreme Court orders liquidation of Jet Airways assets under the IBC code, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 9, and this particular topic is with regard to GS paper 3 banking sector and NBFCs. So the context is that Supreme Court Thursday orders the liquidation of Jet Airways under the IBC by exercising its extraordinary power under the Article 142 of the Constitution. This Article 142 of the Constitution gives plenary power to the Supreme Court to ensure that there is complete justice. Also, that this has came after appeals by the lenders such as SBI was with the bench of CJI DY Chanchurji, and that the order of the NCLAT, that is allowing transfer of ownership of the airline in accordance with the corporate insolvency resolution process, was done away with, was set aside. In particular, this order of NCLAT, there was this Jalan Kalrock consortium had emerged as successful resolution applicant. So what happens, instead of liquidation, there is a proper resolution plan if that if there is a company that is interested in taking up all the loans of that particular company which is going for the bankruptcy. So in this case, this JKC was that particular company which came with this resolution plan, but unfortunately they cannot fulfill their commitments of this resolution plan, and that is where the Supreme Court says that although one of the key objective of this IBC was to ensure the survival of the corporate debtor as going concern, yet the same must not come at the cost of efficiency. In such scenarios, the timely liquidation is indeed preferred over an endless resolution process. So the Supreme Court says that the first priority should be that there should be a resolution process, that there might be a company that might be interested in buying all the debt of that particular company which is going for bankruptcy under some haircut, or less amount of principal and the interest that they may be paying to the lenders. But it should not come with the cost of efficiency, that if there is delay in that resolution process, so better would be that liquidate that company, sell the assets of that particular company. And why this particular petition was filed with the Supreme Court is with regard to the mounting financial woes, that is the SBI, which is one of the biggest lender to the Jet Airways, that they have initiated this insolvency proceedings against the Jet Airways before the NCLT, that is National Company Law Tribunal, Mumbai, in 2019, after which the company was admitted to the resolution process, and in 2021 this JKC emerged as the successful resolution applicant to recommence the operations of the airline. However, they cannot fulfill their commitment, and that is why this SBI and other lenders have approached the Supreme Court, and they have ordered that better to liquidate the company. If you talk about the various brief details about the IBC Code 2016, the objective was this IBC to streamline insolvency process to ensure faster resolution of defaults. And before 2016, there were various laws that were actually looking after the insolvency, but it provided a comprehensive law, and it was passed in 2016, consolidating multiple insolvency laws in India. There is this corporate insolvency resolution process. That mechanism of resolution of defaulting companies should be completed in 180 to 70 days in extreme cases. There are insolvency professionals which are appointed. They are the licensed individuals. They manage the insolvency cases and they try to ensure that there is a fair resolution, that neither the defaulter nor the lender is in loss. Also, this National Company Law Tribunal, that is the adjudicating authority for corporate insolvency cases under the IBC, and there is Debt Recovery Tribunal, that is DRT, for the individual defaulters. Also, the Committee of Creditors is there, which is the primary decision making body comprising the creditors of the debtors, the people who have given loans or the people who are the bondholders. Then the liquidation process, that is applied if no resolution is found, debtor assets are sold. Then the cross-border insolvency, there are some mechanism that is provided with the IBC 2016, which provides for framework for handling insolvency, that is also involving foreign assets. There is also a provision for pre-pack insolvency, that is for fast track process for MSMEs, and that allows for quick restructuring plans rather than altogether liquidation plans. The impact of this is that improved recovery rates, investor confidence, and reduced non-performing assets. If you look into this timeline that would be followed, let's suppose this is a company which has defaulted on their loans, then demand notice would be given to the company. If there is no pre-existing dispute, 10 days notice would be given to the buyer who have taken the loan. Then there would be a petition that would be filed with the adjudicating authority, that is either the National Company Law Tribunal or Debt Recovery Tribunal. Then appointment of interim resolution professionals, who are the licensed individuals who ensures that there is a fair resolution. Then again the formation of Committee of Creditors would be there, and then appointment of resolution professionals that would be confirmed by the Committee of Creditors, and they would be deciding that what would be the resolution plan, whether it would be the restructuring of the debt or whether it would be the liquidation of the assets, etc. Also, the resolution plans prepare information memorandums, resolution plan proposed to the creditors, that how that resolution would be provided to the defaulting company. The resolution plan approved by the Committee of Creditors by 66% of votes of the financial creditor, and this resolution plan is approved by the adjudicating authority, that is NCLT or DRT. If that is happening, then that restructuring plan would be, resolution plan would be followed, otherwise the liquidation would be followed. The compulsory liquidation of the corporate debtors in the event of the resolution plan has not been agreed within 180 or 270 days. At that point of time, liquidation of that company would happen. Our second topic is, under the simplified section, is the verdict on the Aligarh Muslim University. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, Judiciary Fundamental Rights, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 15. The context is that on Friday, the Supreme Court will give its judgment whether the Aligarh Muslim University can claim minority status under Article 30 of the Constitution or not. A 7-judge bench led by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chanchud reserves its verdict in February. And when we are recording this session, judgment has came, and with 4:3 judgment, Supreme Court said that Aligarh Muslim University is a minority institution under the Article 30 of the Constitution. So what was the dispute? The dispute was that the legal dispute over the university's minority status is more than half century old. In 1967, Supreme Court ruled on a challenge of 2 amendments to the university's founding act, which argued that they deprived Muslim community which had set up AMU of the right to administer its institution under the Article 30. That Article 30 provides both rights to both the religious and the linguistic minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. And the first of these amendments in 1951 allowed non-Muslims to be member of the university court, which was the supreme governing body of AMU. And replaced the university's Lord Rector with the Visitor, who was the President of India. Second amendment came in 1965, which expanded the power of AMU's Executive Council, and which meant that University Court will no longer would be the supreme governing body. Earlier, this University Court was having the members from wide variety of areas. It was not only limited to few religions or people from few religions. The Supreme Court held that AMU was neither established nor administered by the Muslim minority. Rather, it came into existence through an act of central legislature, that is Aligarh Muslim University Act 1920, and this was the judgment, that is S. Aziz Basa versus Union of India 1967. Now, what happened in 2005? AMU was first time provided 50% reservation to the Muslims in postgraduate medical programs. The following year, Allahabad High Court struck down both the university order and the 1981 amendment on the ground that AMU was not a minority institution under the Aziz Basa judgment. The High Court order was challenged in Supreme Court soon afterward, and in 2019 the matter was further referred to 7-judge bench to decide whether Aligarh Muslim University is a minority institution or not. And the Friday verdict that has came have decided that Aziz Basa will be overruled, or effectively whether the AMU is a minority institution protected under the Article 30. However, in tomorrow's newspaper, you will get a fair idea that on what basis the Supreme Court have decided that AMU is a minority institution, what are the various nitty-gritties of the judgment, what are the various details of the judgment, and whether the Supreme Court have overruled earlier position taken in the Aziz Basa judgment or not. So what minority status means? Under Article 15(5) introduced in the Constitution in 2006, minority educational institutions are exempted from reserving seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So under Article 15(5), there are seats that should be reserved for socially and educationally backward classes, especially for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So, but these particular provision doesn't apply to the minority institutions, and that's why this litigation or controversy is with regard to only. Now, if AMU is a minority status, their minority status is there, this particular provisions to provide a reservation to the socially and educationally backward classes would not apply to them, and their minority status is sub judice, and that's why they were not providing this reservation. And Supreme Court directed in 2006 that status quo should be maintained, and the university does not have SC/ST quotas. And they have also various references with regard to the St. Stephen's College also, which is also a minority institutions, and there has been various opinions from the university, from the central government, and from the Supreme Court also. And it would be good to see that what Supreme Court decided on what basis Supreme Court decided in tomorrow's newspaper. If you talk about under Article 15 subclause 5, it enables special provisions for socially and educationally disadvantaged groups, and the purpose of this particular provision is to allow reservation in private unaided educational institution for the disadvantaged communities. The exclusion in the Article 15(5) is that the minority institutions established under Article 30 are excluded from them. The impact of Article 15(5) is that it promotes inclusion of marginalized groups in higher education. Their representation, their participation in these institutions can be ensured. Also, under Article 30, it grants minorities the right to establish educational institutions, and here both the religious and the linguistic minorities are provided these rights. If you talk about the scope of Article 30, it protects both religious and the linguistic minorities educational rights. Autonomy in Article 30 is that it ensures that minority institutions independence in managing their affairs, that they can decide their curriculum, they can decide their day-to-day activities, on what basis they will administer, all that can be decided. The purpose of Article 30 was to safeguard the cultural identity through minority-focused educational institutions. However, there are some aid that is given to the central government as the state government also to these minority institutions, and there has been various laws that has came time and again, various measures that is given by the governments, that whatever the administration that is being done, that should not impact the curriculum, that should not impact the educational standards of these minority institutions. Our next topic is Solar Alliance Stocktake. This particular topic again pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, important international institution, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 15. So this explained section talks about that is 2015 climate conference in Paris that led to a setup of International Solar Alliance to accelerate the deployment and the absorption of solar energy across the world. And this International Solar Alliance was a unique initiative in which India took the lead in establishing global organization, and over the years ISA has evolved into an intergovernmental organization with more than 110 countries as members. However, the delivery of the ISA on ground has been very lackluster. That, and one main reason was that ISA was never meant to be a project developer. Rather, it was the facilitator. It did not have to install the solar projects in itself. Rather, it was envisaged as a facilitator or the force multiplier, which would help countries overcome financial, technological, regulatory or other barriers in harnessing solar energy. And the first such project is expected to be in Cuba, where auctions have taken place and developer has been selected to set up a 60 megawatt plant, which is supposed to be followed by several other similar sized or bigger projects totaling about 1250 megawatts. Several other countries in Africa and Latin America had set to complete the preparatory work and are ready to follow the Cuban example. Of the 345 gigawatt of solar capacity addition in 2023, more than 216 gigawatt or about 62% happened in China alone. That is one dimension, that although installation of solar energy is increasing, but it has been mainly limited to the China. It doesn't spread to other parts of the world. The main reason why China is taking lead in the solar energy is the cheap availability of various semiconductors in the China, the manufacturing of photovoltaic cells and various other components that are required for solar panels in the China at very low prices. Also, more than 80% of investment in solar energy are flowing into the developed countries, China, and large developing countries like India. So why? Since the International Solar Alliance is not providing any funding mechanisms explicitly, rather it is providing that hand-holding and capacity building. It is facilitating the private investment. When 80% of this investment is going to some developed country or the developing countries like China and India, there is lack of funds that can be actually diverted to the low income countries or the countries in the Africa or the Latin America. The barrier and the solution, that there are large entry barriers in smaller developing countries, particularly in Africa. This is what ISC has been engaged in ironing out, because they are very apprehensive about the investment in the solar energy. These smaller countries, there are various regulations, there are various clearances that are needed to go for the investment in these countries, and in this regard only various diplomatic channels, various diplomatic methods that are being followed by the International Solar Alliance, so that there can be a proper architecture that can be built, so that a smooth flow of the technology, smooth flow of financing can happen in these African and Latin American countries. And why this apprehension is there with these countries? Because of the fact that these countries do not have prior experience of executing large power projects, and certainly not the solar projects, which is newer technology, and there are no local developers, so the investment has to come from the foreign companies. So first apprehension, that they do not have any experience with regard to these large power projects. Second apprehension is that there is no local developer, so they have to be dependent on the foreign companies. So they are again very apprehensive that to what extent that foreign companies will be integrated in their economy, whether they will impact the local policies, local politics. So all these apprehensions have slowed down the process of the International Solar Alliance. Also, the solar energy is going to be very important for transition that we are seeking, that is net zero by 2050 or 2070, and it is also very important to tackle the challenge of the climate change. And the fastest growing renewable energy source is the solar energy, despite its inherent limitation to be intermittent, means it is only available for 12 hours or less than that. Also, it is not properly available in the winter season, rainy season. Still, it is one such source which is very efficient and productive. In most regions of the world, solar is now also the cheapest source of energy when sunshine is available. Solar energy installed capacity is projected to grow between 3 and 15 times in different scenarios for achieving global net zero by 2050. The solar manufacturing industry is even more imbalanced. Over 80% of manufacturing process is concentrated in China, which we have talked, which is seen as another barrier to quick spread of solar energy in a smaller market. And in fact, it is lopsided nature of solar development that ISA was meant to address this balance. That ISA was meant to ensure that more and more production can come and that can happen outside China, so that cheap and proper availability of the various components that are needed for building the solar energy is available. But it hasn't been very smooth. This ISA, this is somewhat the area where ISA is lacking. Also, despite being an intergovernmental multilateral organization, ISA is still largely viewed as an Indian initiative. This is not without reason. It is headquartered in New Delhi. It is almost entirely funded by India, and India has presided over its General Assembly since in its inception, and it will continue to do at least till 2026. Unfortunately, ISA's good offices have remained largely underutilized till now. They have been understaffed, underfunded, and has a troubled relation with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which is a liaison ministry with the Indian government. But more importantly, it has failed to create that excitement about the solar energy in countries that are in desperate need of access to cheap and reliable energy source. If you look into this data, that the total installed capacity in 2023, that China and European Union is taking lead, but we have seen uptrend in the total installed capacity as well as annual installation in the gigawatt. Also, you have to understand this thing, that why this is a failure, that when we come with any idea, if we create that idea with so much of excitement, okay, so that will create a case where that will create a FOMO like situation, where smaller countries which are not very financially sound, the dependence on the fossil fuel is very costly for them. So when we will be able to create that FOMO in these countries, they are already searching for alternatives, that is renewable and solar energy. So they can get that alternative in solar energy. So we have to create that excitement. We have to create that scenario where these countries can have that trust on the solar energy on the International Solar Alliance. And the one such idea under the International Solar Alliance is this One Sun, One World and One Grid initiative, which calls for connecting energy grids across border to facilitate the transition of solar powers, which also aims to boost use of renewable energy, and which is also calls for addressing the high cost of energy storage, and this will help in transmission of the energy from one surplus area to the deficient areas. And this is this One Sun, One World and One Grid. Since we have one sun for the whole world, we have one world, there should be one grid which is interconnected and which can actually help in transmission of power at a lower cost. Our next topic is CSR contributions to agriculture. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3 agriculture, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 10. The context is that a decade ago, India became the first country to legally mandate CSR under the section 135 of Companies Act 2030. And this particular section outlines the rules and regulations governing the CSR. According to National CSR portal, from 2014 to 23, 1.84 lakh crore of CSR funds were disbursed, with extent of contribution increasing. But a question arises that how can CSR help agriculture? So what this particular article related to the CSR in the agriculture is calling, that there are availability of CSR funds, but they are not being fully diverted, they are not properly coming in the agriculture. And moreover, as of now, they were actually fulfilling the requirement of the capital, requirement of the storage infrastructure. However, they need to be shifted, and they are slowly shifting towards the sustainable agricultural practices like drip irrigation and other things. And this is saying that the sustainability as the CSR priority is what we are witnessing, that the capital requirement and infrastructure development are the important need of Indian agriculture today, and this is also where CSR activities have previously contributed and expected to continue doing so. But some example of some activities include establishing grain bank, farmer school, livelihood project based on agriculture and allied activities, water conservation project and energy efficient irrigation. That this recent paradigm shift in agriculture towards sustainability and modern agriculture makes a good case of CSR funds from the private sector. That we have to understand that green revolution came, we have increased our production, it is increasing to it is witnessing a very high increase. But as of now, we have to now shift towards the sustainability, where we are also looking into the needs of the environment. We are following such sustainable practices where there is low use of fertilizers, or efficient use of fertilizers is there, efficient use of water is there. Some good variety, efficient or high yield variety seeds are being used, and the climate resilient agriculture is being followed so that farming can be remunerative. In this regard, now there is need to shift these CSR funds towards these sustainable and climate resilient agricultural activities. And why it is also important? Because agriculture is very important for our Indian economy. It contributes almost 17% to GDP. There is almost 50% of workforce that is dependent on the agriculture. Agriculture is one of the important raw material contributor to various other sectors like manufacturing sector, industry, etc. And what else this article is there calling for is that there are very few areas or the activities which are mentioned in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, activities targeting agricultural sustainability could fall under various other activities. There is no as such specific activity that is covering the sustainable agriculture. So we can change the schedules of the Companies Act, and there can be a full-fledged domain, there can be a full-fledged list that can be provided which can actually cover the sustainable agricultural practices. That can actually help in diversion of more funds under the sustainable agricultural practices, that will motivate more and more companies to invest in the sustainable agricultural practices. For this, we need a separate activity under the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, which will be covering the sustainable agricultural practices. If you talk about the CSR, the legal mandate that companies meeting the criteria must allocate 2% of the profit to the CSR. The primary goal of this CSR was to address the social, environmental and community needs. Eligible sector under this are education, health, rural development and environment focused projects qualify for this CSR. This is again that we have talked, it is governed by section 135 of Companies Act 2013. And the corporate responsibility, it encourages business to contribute beyond profit motives, tax benefits. It offers tax exemptions, incentivize companies. There are transparency that is required, that companies must report CSR activities in annual reports. And there are monitoring mechanism for CSR also. There is dedicated portal. There are CSR committees also within the companies that oversee the fund utilization of the CSR. And many of the times companies do partnership with the NGOs and the local agencies so that this CSR spending can be done. Our last topic is the first digital population clock. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 1, population and associated issue, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 5. The context is that Bangalore city's first digital population clock, which will display the real-time estimates of the population of the Karnataka and the country, will be inaugurated at the Institute of Social and Economic Change on Friday. The population clock, which is a project which is jointly developed by ISEC and Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, would update the estimated Karnataka's population every 1 minute 10 seconds and the country's population every 2 seconds. And why it has been set up? With the objective of creating awareness about population growth of country and providing authentic data for researchers and scholars. At this point of time, if you will search the population of India, there are very diverging data that are available. Since we didn't go for the official census in 2021 due to COVID-19 and various other operational constraints, probably after the completion of this 2021 census, we will have a proper data. If you look into the data from the World Bank, the population of India was 610 million in year 1974 and it is 596 million. Population of 4 states, okay, that is in year 2024, and in year 2024 we have population of 1.4 billion as per the World Bank. We'll look into this population growth rate data. As per this SPI precursor to census 2024 report, we have seen a less increase in the population growth in last 1 decade. So what the increased population or the population data signifies with regard to the India? That is the rapid urbanization that India is seeing, that is almost 36.36% of the India's population is urban as per the World Bank. The young population, that is the rising demographic young population in India, working age population is increasing. Median age of India is 28.4 years, providing demographic advantage. But it would be good to see that how we are reaping this demographic advantage. High population density, 488 people per square kilometer, and which was 382 in year 2011. It is home to multiple ethnic groups, languages and the religions. National fertility rate now below replacement level at 2.0, and some states have also gone for achieved a lower fertility rate than the replacement rates. Also, there is an increasing elderly population, rising need for healthcare services, that is 10.5% of the population in year 2022 was elderly, and which is projected to increase to almost 20% by 2050 as per United Nations Population Fund. Also, sex ratio has improved many-fold in last one decade, and it is currently around 1020 as per the National Family Health Survey. Also, the rural dominance is still there with regard to the population of India. 64.13% population that is still rural as per the World Bank 2022 data. And with regard to the economic implication that we have with regard to rising population is the growing workforce, challenges in the employment and the resource allocation that may arise in future with regard to the rising population of India. This was all from today's Analyst. Thank you for watching this session. All the best. Keep studying.